Hello, everybody. So, a little while ago, I got this message, and I thought about it for a little while and decided that it would be. I don't know if I'm capable of doing a SparkNotes version of everything that Tomassi talks about in his books or that, Robert Glover talks about in his book, but it might be useful to do a SparkNotes version at least of females' sexual growth and development. That sounds almost like a puberty kind of thing, but female sexual growth and development through the various phases and transitions that they go through. And so I drew this little graph and I'm going to go through it and then I'm going to draw on a bunch more, but I wanted to give you guys a visual representation of women's sexual life cycles because sometimes an idea that sounds rather complex when you write it down can be very, very easy to understand once you just have a visual representation. So, if you watch this video and you're interested in any of this and you want to know more, because this is going to be a SparkNotes version, it's going to be very quick and dirty. Take a look at this book. This is basically what all that is based off of, and in fact, I've got right here a much prettier, nicer graph version of what I'm talking about right here. I'm not a mathematical person, so, usually when you have a graph, it goes sideways. I'm kind of going straight up and down. The reason I did that was to mark off one area as alpha and one area as beta. A lot of times in the manosphere, you hear people talking about alpha as being the most desirable thing to be and beta being the least desirable thing to be. And they kind of put them on a spectrum. Some guys are more alpha, some guys are more beta. They usually have their alpha and beta moments, but everybody seems to want to be as alpha as possible. And in any discussion in the manosphere, you typically hear people talking about being alpha or becoming more alpha or at least acting alpha. That's nice, but what we're going to be talking about here is the transition that women make back and forth between which one they're seeking more, which one they currently desire more, the alpha or the beta. And so I kind of wanted to talk about what it is that alphas have that are so exciting and what it is that betas have that aren't necessarily as undesirable as they would seem. So your alpha, of course, they've got their pros and cons. And this is something that is rarely talked about, but there are cons to being alpha. Alphas, of course, they're very sexy, they're exciting, they have the good genes. There's a lot more to being alpha that is desirable, but I wanted to give a very short, brief SparkNotes version. So, hello, kitty. So these are just rough idea, the pros of being alpha, and of course there are the cons of being alpha, the things that are less desirable about being alpha. These are talked about far less, but these are things that women are aware of. Alphas are non-committal. Alphas have bad boy drama, like cheating and, just simple things like, going out and partying all night and being drunk the next morning. That doesn't make for a good, stable home environment, which kind of means that alphas are bad fathers. They're not necessarily going to stick around once they impregnate a woman. They're non-committal. And even if they do stick around, they don't necessarily always make the greatest of dads. Alphas aren't necessarily great providers. That hot guy with the garage band, he's not necessarily going to be able to pay the rent. It's all fun and exciting and sexy, which is why so many people in the manosphere want to be these things, but there are definitely downsides to your more alpha males. That's not saying that all alpha males have these downsides, but this is the tendency of alphas in general. When you look at pickup artists, they put forth this exciting, sexy, bad boy kind of impression, but again, non-committal. There's a little bit of drama. They'll be hooking up with other women. Are they necessarily going to be the most involved fathers? These are issues. And so then you go to the other side of the coin, you get beta. And this is all along a spectrum. Guys tend to have a little bit of alpha, a little bit of beta. But if you go to the farthest ends of the spectrum, this is what you see on the alpha side. And at the farthest ends of the spectrum, what you see on the beta side, well, there are actually some good things about being beta. Betas are secure. Betas are reliable. Betas are the good dad. And betas tend to be good providers. These are guys who are going to stick with you and be that good, nice guy that a lot of young men these days are told to be. In fact, a lot of men are coached to be this without necessarily taking into account that they are also becoming this as well. These are the cons, which a lot of people in the manosphere are quite familiar with. They're boring. They're sexually unexciting. They don't necessarily have those amazing good genes that you see on the alpha. They're not good leaders, and women being hypergamous do seek leadership in a relationship. We want someone to take charge, we want someone to be the leader. That's what alphas do. That's not something betas are any good at. And so when you look at a woman's life cycle, she kind of starts becoming aware of she starts becoming sexually interested a little bit more in the later teens area, thereabouts. I mean, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, but we'll just say late teens. She kind of starts noticing that boys are cute, and she's looking at what men look like, and so she's like, oh, they're cute. And that's kind of where she starts off with. And guys are cute, guys are cute, guys are cute. She gets a little older. The guys are really cute now. You know, she hits her early 20s, and these are the party years. We all hear about the party years. At this point, she's after that wonderful, exciting, sexy alpha guy. That's all she's after. She wants this. She doesn't really care about this. This isn't a problem, and she really doesn't care about any of this either. She just wants this right here. And so during the party years, ages 20 to about 27-ish, that's when women are at their most sexy. They peak at about the age of 23. That's when women are at their sexiest. But it's a curve, so they stay pretty sexy for a while. And in that period of time, they're having a party. They're at their most attractive. Alpha guys want to sleep with them. Alpha guys want to date them. They have their pick of the litter. And so women spend a lot of time in their party years, and this isn't all women, partying, having fun, chasing after all of this wonderfulness. And then they, at about the age of 27, 28-ish, they hit the epiphany phase. And suddenly they realize, I need to get married. I need to have children. I need to have these things in my life as well as all this. The problem is they're on their downward slope when it comes to attractiveness, so they're not quite at this peak anymore where they were earlier. They're not quite as sexy as they were. They're slowly going downhill, and they're starting to realize that their looks are going away, and a lot of their sexual power is going away with their looks. And so they want all of this. They want all of this too. And if they can't find it all in one package without any of these cons to drag it all down, they start to get very irritable. And so this is the point at which women's interests start to kind of shift over we're going to move over here, in this direction. They start to realize that they can't afford to just have fun with this guy because he brings all of these problems to the table. They start to go more toward this guy. They're more drawn to the secure, reliable guy who's going to be a good dad to their kids and all these wonderful things. And they're a little bit more inclined to ignore the boring, sexually unexciting, substandard, not as handsome, not as sexy. They're willing to go for that if they can just get this, because none of these guys are really providing it. Alpha men might have gone for them back when they were in the height of their party years, but now they're not anymore. They're hitting 30. So at 30, you find women who are in the security phase. And the security phase is where they kind of settle for a beta guy. And I've seen women do this where I've actually known women who they were big partiers during the party years. They loved to drink. They loved to party. They maybe did some drugs. It was all fun. They had a great time. Fun, 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 fun. And then they suddenly meet a secure, reliable, nice guy. This is the kind of guy that you're supposed to get married to. And this is what women are told. You're supposed to marry this. And guys are told you're supposed to be this. And so everybody takes a little moment to ignore all of these cons. And she marries the guy, and that's all good for him, because betas are in a really rough position at this point because they've been ignored up until this point in favor of these sexy alpha guys. So suddenly the women that they thought were sexy, that were pretty inaccessible to them up until this point, they turn around and say, hey, I really like you now. And beta guys who've been pretty sexually deprived until this point are very, very inclined to just believe them. Why shouldn't they, Now I finally get mine. Now all these things that I was told were going to make me attractive to women, now they are making me attractive to women. What they don't realize is that men reach their peak sexual market value at about the age of 37. So women are diving on these guys just as they're hitting the highest sexual market value they have, the most attractive they're going to become. And they're trying to find one of these guys that they can pair up with so that they can ride out the security phase comfortably. There we go. That's the security phase right there. That's a very ugly straight line, but my handwriting is not the best. I apologize. So, women enter into the security phase with Mr. Safe and Reliable. And they stay in the security phase for a while. And if they were to just stay in the security phase forever, that would be, pretty okay for Mr. Safe and Reliable. Now, one of the things that Tomassi points out is that you shouldn't mistake attraction for arousal. I believe those were his exact words. Women are attracted to the beta guy in the security and epiphany phases because they need somebody to marry, somebody to have kids with, somebody that they can do all these important life things with. But that doesn't mean that they're not still interested in all of this. Women are always going to be interested in this. The more of this we can get, the more of these specific pros we can get, the happier we are. And that's something that I think a lot of guys neglect when they're talking about alpha and beta. They forget that we need all of this and we also need all of this. If we're going to have healthy, successful offspring, the best, and oh dear goodness, excuse me, Mr. Chester. If we're going to have the healthiest offspring we can get and the most successful offspring that we can get, we really need to have all of this along with all of this. And none of this and none of this. That's what women need. Now, this whole transition period, this weird squiggly line right here, is women's desperate attempts to bounce back and forth between these two sets of men, desperately seeking as much of this as they can get and as much of this as they can get, while avoiding as much of this as they can and as much as that of this as they can. Instead of, securing one man, they're just bouncing back and forth. And this is something that our current society somewhat encourages. We're not encouraged to get married and settle down at an early age. We're told women are told we have plenty of time. We have all this time. And it's amazing to me as I look at it how very short this period of time is in the overall lifespan of a woman. Because it seems like forever. When you're in the middle of this and you're a young woman, this seems like it's just going to keep stretching on forever. And you're young, so the older you live, the longer you live, the more time seems to move quickly because the more information you're packing away inside your brain and storing up. So when you're a child, time moves very, very slowly. In fact, when you've got a very small child like a toddler, they tell you not to put them in timeout for too long because anything longer than approximately their age's number in minutes, so for a 2-year-old, 2 minutes, anything longer than that seems like eternity. Because they don't have a very good sense of time yet. They've only been alive for a short period of time. Well, that works for small children, but it also works for young adults. If you've only been alive for about 20 years, the idea of another half of your lifespan going all the way up to 30, that seems like forever. And I remember experiencing this, and it amazes me that I'm looking at the graph now and seeing just how short of a period of time it was. But anyway, I digress. So we're here at the lovely but poorly drawn security phase. And this is the point at which the beta guy's happy because he married his dream girl. Yeah, she's not as young as she used to be, but she married him, and that's wonderful. But then, once security has been established and the woman has all this stuff that she needs, she starts bouncing back over to this stuff. And so we see her entering into what Rollo Tomassi, frequently refers to very roughly as the alpha reinterest phase. She's back over here again. It's like, all right, I had this. This has all been secured. He's not going anywhere. And so now it's time to maybe divorce him and take his money so that I can go run off with this fun dude, or just have an affair with this fun dude while this guy's waiting at home for me. And I know that when this guy starts exhibiting all these cons, when he cheats on me, when he decides to do something stupid, because sometimes bad boys will do stupid things, when I just get tired of his crap, I can always go back to my safe, reliable, secure husband. Unfortunately, that tends to be the case. And so they spend a bunch of time over here. They wander around. If they divorce this guy in order to take his money and then go play around with this guy, then they're going to be here for a while, just kind of bouncing around from alpha dude to alpha dude, just having a party and a fun and the excitement. And oh my gosh, it's great. These are the cougar years right here. This is when women do that whole cougar thing. And so they're chasing guys who I guess are younger than them. they're having a ball. It's all a big party, but eventually it gets tiring and women go right back over to, I want security. I've had fun dating these guys, but they always leave. I want somebody who's going to stay with me. I want somebody who's going to keep me company as the years go on. I've got about 20 years of life left, maybe only 10 years of life left. I want someone to be there by my side through that period. And, at that point, she's 50, she's postmenopausal. That's kind of the end of a person's sexual lifespan. Like, yes, people do have sex when they're elderly. I personally certainly intend to be having sex when I'm elderly. But it's not the same kind of game. You're talking about a whole different game. And at that point, a lot of people's sexual characteristics have blurred together. If you take two very old people and hold them up side by side, and I used to work in a nursing home, so I saw this quite a lot, it's very difficult to tell the difference between a man and a woman. People just kind of, they lose their sexual characteristics as they lose their fertility, as they're no longer quite as able to reproduce. It's not as important anymore, so it's not as visible and it's not as prominent. So really, I think Tomassi stopped at 50 because he said that after 50, men just kind of aren't as interested in playing the game with women. Honestly, after 50, maybe this is the reason that women move to the security phase. They're not as interested in playing the game either. It's too much work, it's effort, it's annoying, and that's why women usually finish up in the security phase, I think. They just want something peaceful and calm and steady and, beta. So, this is a mess. All of this is a horrible mess. If women do not, if they do go bouncing back and forth like this, seeking different men to satisfy these two different needs that they ping pong back and forth between, they're not going to have a stable lifelong relationship. They're going to spend the party years dating multiple guys who are like this. None of those guys are really going to settle down with them for multiple reasons. One of them is, if he's really, really alpha and he's really, really exciting, he might have other options and he might say, okay, that was fun, and then he'll be non-committal. Or she might date a guy who's really alpha and exciting, who's totally in her league that she should aim for, and be like, I think I can do better. And so she'll just keep playing around in this area with multiple different guys until she finds probably about one beta, maybe two, but I mean, basically she's in the security area. She's looking for somebody who's going to marry her. And then she ping-pongs right back over to this, because now that she's established the security, now that these needs have been met, she wants all of this again, because women never really stop wanting this. This is why people in the manosphere are so focused on this. They aren't necessarily even focused on this. This is what men in the manosphere talk about. This is what PUAs talk about. We all want this. What they fail to realize is that what all women really, really want, if you want to give a woman everything she wants, you need all of this, and you need all of this. You need none of this, and you need none of this. And these lists right here are not comprehensive. There's a lot more to alphaness that women are attracted to than just exciting, sexy, and good genes. And there's a lot more to beta-ness that women are attracted to than just security, reliability, being a good dad, and being a good provider. There's more to it. This is the quick and dirty SparkNotes version. Now, one of the things that I've seen guys talk about in order to avoid this whole ping-ponging thing is getting a girl married right as she's entering to the party years. I've had guys tell me that 23, which is the age exactly that I met my husband and decided I wanted to marry him and became very committed to him, they said that this was too late, and that really if I was going to be a good wife or a worthwhile wife to my husband, I should have married him right about here-ish. Now, Tomassi outlines a problem with that particular strategy in his book. If a woman marries a guy right in these entering years, the party phase, maybe even the late teen phase, so right out of high school, possibly the first year or two of college, if a woman marries a guy at this point, she has not had a chance to accurately assess her own sexual market value. She doesn't know where she stands in relation to this and this. This being the most desirable, this being kind of your secondary, well, it was the best I can do kind of thing. She doesn't know how attractive, exciting, sexy she can get. And so for the next several years while she's married to this guy that she married right here before she got to have these party years, she's going to be listening to all of her friends having their escapades with different alpha exciting guys. And she's going to be sitting there going, was he really the best that I could do? Was this decision really the best decision for me? Because now she's reaching her peak sexual market value. She might have a better bargaining position here than she had over here. She might have better access to more attractive, exciting alpha men at this point in her life, at the age of 23, when she's at her sexual market peak, than she had when she married this guy down here. So while I have had multiple men tell me that I married my husband too late, I was too old. 23 apparently is too old, which I think is kind of hilarious. I've had guys say this to me. If you marry too young, you run the risk of always questioning that decision. Was that the right decision? Because I had all these years left to establish my own sexual market value. Now, there are a lot of problems with waiting longer than that, which become very evident right here in the epiphany phase. Guys don't necessarily want to date a woman when she's right here because suddenly she wants everything from here and everything from here. She won't take any of this crap. She won't take any of that crap. And she thinks she ought to have it all, but her sexual market value is already on the decline. So she's becoming less and less attractive, and she's demanding more and more. So you don't want to wait too long, but you don't want to jump in too early. I think that Tomassi would say that this age is too early and that you should aim more toward the 25 years, which honestly is such a small period of a person's lifetime. It's just fascinating to me. But anyway, he says that 23 might actually be too young and you want to aim more toward 25, 26, 27-ish. Well, they're still in the party years, but they haven't quite entered the epiphany phase, but their party years are winding down and they're realizing more and more that, they've established what their actual sexual market value is. They have a clear idea of what they can actually bargain for and what they can't bargain for. The problem with that is things like Tinder will throw these estimations that people have off. Tinder, women log on, or any dating app really, they log on, they immediately get inundated with male attention. And so it's very easy for women to assume, even though they're not necessarily that attractive themselves, that they can get the most alpha, exciting, sexy men, because men on dating apps have realized pretty quickly that all they have to do is just send messages out to everybody, and of the women that reply, then they pick and choose. So women log on to the dating apps, they've got tons and tons of messages, they can have any guy they want, and so they're going to pick right off the top the most alpha, sexy, exciting guys they can find. None of these traits really show up valuably on a dating app. Nobody really cares about these traits on a dating app unless even if you're going on some sort of like Christian seeking to marriage kind of dating app, these might look kind of good, but they're still going to be gravitating towards these. Women are always going to value these traits because the most important thing in many ways is getting good genes. However, once we have those, we still need all of these things. There's other problems with that. Of course, the state will step in and provide this to women. They won't be able to provide the good dad, which is something that I think is extremely important. But they'll provide, security and providership and all that wonderful stuff. One thing that I've noticed, having read the book and kind of gone through at least this part of the phase, I'm here. This is the you are here moment for me. Which is kind of sad because these are over and they went by very, very quickly. One thing that I've noticed is having married off, having left the dating market at about this age, I still go through these phases. I'm just not going through these phases and ping-ponging back and forth between different men. I am, however, experiencing the transitions in priority. And so I found at the age of 23 a guy who had a lot of these traits and a lot of these traits. It was an acceptably high number of these traits for me to be happy and content, and these traits were also present, which was very necessary. So I got it all in one package. I was very happy. And so as I've made this loopy kind of ping-pong transition, I've been with the same guy the whole time. And so at this period of my life, I noticed that I was very interested in these traits. And then when I entered into this period of my life, I noticed and began to appreciate these traits more. Which is not to say that I ceased to be interested in these traits. I continued to be interested in these traits very much. but I began to understand why these traits were important. Up until about this point right here, I knew these were important because I realized that I was going to want to get married and have kids at some point in my life. And if you ask women in these party years, well, do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? They'll be like, well, eventually at some point in my life, they'll say that. These traits are very important, and they kind of have some idea that they're important, but that's something that they push to the back of their minds. It's something that they don't think about. And even I, when I was at this age, I wasn't necessarily thinking about this. Some subconscious part of me was aware that that was important because I remember noticing these traits in my husband before I even noticed these traits. Which is not to say that these were the most evident traits. The thing was, I was actually mostly excited by him. I found him a very exciting and interesting person to talk to, so I was pretty much I guess I was very attracted to these traits. I just hadn't stopped to consider the fact that he was sexy and he had good genes quite at that, in those initial phases when I was just getting to know him. But I did notice that he would be a very excellent father very, very early on, and it surprised me because up until that point I hadn't realized that there was any part of me that was evaluating him as a potential sexual partner. So I wasn't paying attention to any of this. I just thought he was a good friend. But then I noticed this, and some piece of me filed it away in the back of my mind because I remember feeling it happen and thinking that it was very unusual and not really knowing why. Because I had no intention of sleeping with him. And then as time passed, he started demonstrating these traits, and I started to realize that it was important that these be accounted for. A lot of women are not taught to do that. A lot of young women, they start dating and they're told, oh yeah, you need this. Disney tells you need this crap. But really, biologically, we're driven to seek out this. And so when people are like, oh, beauty is only skin deep and beauty is in the eye of the beholder and all this crap, they're trying to sell you on this too. And it's bullshit. They sell you on this because they want men to be this, because they want men to fill this role when it becomes necessary. And so they tell men, well, you need to stick around and provide security, reliability, good providership, all this stuff, which is valuable and very important. But I think that people have this idea that it's going to take this guy and turn him into this guy at the point where we need him to be this guy while still being this guy. It doesn't work out like that, not necessarily. There are not many men who embody these traits and these traits at the same time. And the point at which women are most likely to be able to capitalize on both of these traits in the same man is right about here where I did it. After that point, when you get into this point, suddenly women have to start making compromises. And usually the compromises they make is to grab all of this and put up with all of this until they just can't stand it anymore, at which point they ping pong back over to here. And society has kind of enabled women to do that, which is very unfortunate. Because this doesn't provide a stable home life for children. It doesn't provide a stable home life for men. It doesn't provide a stable home life for women. As funny as it might sound, it's actually really upsetting to get a divorce. It's upsetting to be so tired of this that you would rather get a divorce and run after this. Now, for women who've already gotten to that point and then gone after this guy and they're having an affair with this guy, suddenly the divorce with this guy doesn't seem nearly so bad, but it's an unpleasant situation. It's definitely less than ideal. And women have been taught, frequently by society, and I was taught this too, actually, that you have all of this time. It's going to last forever. It's just going to go on and on. You just have a party. I remember being at about this point in the graph and tearing my hair out going, why can't I find a man that I'm attracted to? And being told that I had plenty of time. Look at all this time you've got. Don't be worrying about that. You can focus on your education and your career and all these things that you're supposed to be focusing on because that's what society tells us to focus on. And suddenly, before you know it, you're 30 and you're single. And you have to settle for this guy when you really want this guy. And nobody wants to settle for what they feel is second best. Nobody wants to settle for what they feel is less than what they deserve. And this goes for men, but it primarily goes for women because Well, women only have so many chances at procreating, so we kind of got to get it all right the first time. And women aren't getting it right the first time. Just because a woman is married, which I was, that doesn't mean we don't make these weird transitions and these loop-de-loops. It's a change in our awareness of our situation. And so when I hit this area here, I made this transition in awareness over to appreciating this more. I don't know what's going to happen here when I enter into the alpha reinterest phase. I'm assuming I'm going to, become more interested in these traits in my husband. Um, I know that this is the point at which people are like, oh, well, this is the point at which you lose interest in your husband, but that's not necessarily going to be the case. It wasn't the case for my parents or their parents, and I don't expect or plan for it to be the case with me. I have the feeling that when I get to about this point in time, so about 5-ish years down the road, I'm going to start noticing how attractive and handsome my husband is. And this would make sense if our kids are all in school and we have a little bit of time together alone during the day. It's like, I mean, at this point in our marriage, the kids are very small, and it's like, if we want anything to happen in a sexual manner, we have to, kind of jump on the opportunity, like, oh, the kids are in bed, quick, close the door, lock it, turn the lights down low, let's light a candle or something, and I'll jump into my lingerie, and let's see what we can do in this brief time period before we have to go to bed, because we got to wake up early in the morning. Um, at some point, the kids are going to be, they're going to be in school. So I might find myself making this transition at that point, and making it very easily with my husband. So just because I'm changing my attention from one thing to the other, that doesn't mean that I've stopped being interested in that single man, that one man that I met at this point in my life. And I think it's very possible for a woman to get married to a man probably around this period of her life, after, almost by necessity, after she's established her own sense of her sexual market value. But before she's gotten to this point and said, oh my goodness, I I kind of blew it. I was hoping for one of these hot guys to marry me. Um, somewhere in this window, if they marry a guy, and there are going to be exceptions to this rule, and this is something Tomassi points out a lot in the book. There are exceptions to this graph. There are many exceptions. There are many things that can toss a woman off of this path. And so that's something to be aware of. But if you marry a woman roughly around here, she can go through these transitions in her awareness of a man's sexual traits and stay with the same man and continue to be happy. That is a possible thing. That is attainable. It is doable. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's just something that I don't think our society has been sufficiently encouraging for young women. I always talk to my husband about the time-sensitive stuff. I wanted to get married as soon as possible because that was a time-sensitive issue. And then as soon as we were married, I wanted to have kids because I wanted to get the kids out of the way before I hit this number right here. That's almost certainly not going to be happening in our case because of all the difficulties we ran into at about this point in time, but life happens. I wanted to do what I considered the time-sensitive things when I was still young and needed to do them on a calendar of sorts. I could work on my education and my career in these later periods of my life. Yes, your brain isn't quite as agile as when you're at this point in your life, when you're, in your 40s and 50s. But these were goals in life, getting married, having kids, that I couldn't just put off until the age of 50 or 60. Education is something that you are actually capable of putting off. So I think that women have these goals backwards, and I don't think that it's because women's goals are necessarily wrong. I think that it's because women are told that the order in which they should be doing things, college, education, partying, whoops, I need to get married, whoops, I need to have kids, whoops, I'm running out of time. This is a reversal of the order that women should be seeking to do things. And that sounds like a very, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen kind of idea, a very let's just keep women dumb sort of idea. But really, a woman can pursue her education at this period of her life without any desperation, without any rushing, without any, oh no, I've run out of time. And so, honestly, this is my personal opinion. It's not really anything you're going to find in this book right here. But personally, I believe very strongly that, during your party years, it seems like a mad dash, but it also, when you're in the middle of your party years, it seems like you've got forever to do this. It feels like you've got forever to do this. You need to establish your sexual market value in a realistic way, not just a, hey, I went on Tinder and all these hot guys hit on me, so I must be a goddess. You need to reasonably and reliably establish your sexual market value. You need to find a partner who has as many of these qualities as you can attain. You need to secure a solid relationship with that partner. And then you have this window right here, actually more of a window right up here, but this window kind of stretching from 25-ish to 35-ish, in which you can have as many kids as you want to. You've got a pretty large window. It's about a decade. If you married a little bit earlier than that, you got a little bit more time, but if you married a little later than that, you still got time. And there's no rushing, there's no panic, there's no worry. You can just do it in the natural way that it was meant to be done. I think this is a much better way to handle things. This is the way I handled things, and I'm very happy with the results thus far. So this is what I would recommend to any young women watching this. Not that there are many young women who watch these videos, but this is your quick and dirty overview of women's sexual development and the ping-ponging that women do back and forth between the alpha traits and the beta traits, preferably the most desirable of these traits, and we try as much as possible to avoid the less desirable elements of these two traits. So that's it for today's video. I will talk to you guys later, and next week we'll cover the next chapter.